Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera diucapkan kepada para tetamu yang dihormati sekalian. Terima kasih atas penyertaan anda untuk sama-sama menyaksikan secara maya Majlis Pelancaran Dasar Revolusi Perindustrian Keempat Negara ataupun dikenali sebagai Dasar 4 IR Negara yang dianjurkan oleh Unit Perancang Ekonomi EPU dengan kerjasama Kementerian Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi MOSTI. Sementara itu, ingin dimaklumkan bahawa majlis ini turut dipancarkan menerusi laman sosial media EPU dan MOSTI seperti Facebook dan YouTube. Terima kasih. Hadirin sekalian, Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Yang berhormat Dato Sri Mustapa Mohamed, Menteri di Jabatan Perdana Menteri Ekonomi. Yang berhormat Khairy Jamaluddin Abu Bakar, Menteri Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi MOSTI. Yang berhormat Dato Arthur Joseph Kurup, Timbalan Menteri di Jabatan Perdana Menteri Ekonomi. Yang berhormat Dato Haji Ahmad Amzad Hashim, Timbalan Menteri MOSTI. Div-div kehormat, rakan-rakan media serta para hadirin sekalian. Selamat datang ke Majlis Pelancaran Dasar 4 IR Negara. Namun sebelum majlis diteruskan, marilah kita sama-sama menadah tangan memanjatkan doa bagi memohon keberkatan. Dengan ini, majlis dengan hormatnya mempersilakan Imam Besar Masjid Negara, Tuan Haji Ihsan Muhammad Husni untuk memimpin bacaan doa. Dipersilakan.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ به مزيده يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم إنا نسألك خير هذا اليوم فتحه ونصره ونوره وبركته وهداه ونعوذ بك من شر ما فيه ومن شر ما بعده يا أرحم الراحمين Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, pada hari yang penuh barakah ini, kami sekalian hamba-hambamu menadah tangan dengan penuh tadarru' agar engkau permudahkan perjalanan Majlis Pelancaran Dasar Revolusi Perindustrian Keempat yang akan disempurnakan oleh Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Mustapa Mohamed, Menteri di Jabatan Perdana Menteri Ekonomi, dan Yang Berhormat Khairy Jamaluddin, Menteri Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi. Ya Allah, berikanlah kami kekuatan untuk melestarikan Dasar Revolusi Perindustrian Keempat bagi membantu melaksanakan ekonomi digital yang bakal menjadi tonggak dan nadi pembangunan negara dan serantau. Bantulah kami dengan izin-Mu jua agar kami mampu menterjemah rancangan ini atas dasar keprihatinan kepada semua tanpa mengira latar belakang bangsa, kaum, keturunan dan agama. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla wa anta taj'alul huzna in syi'ta sahla. Allahumma ya mujibad da'awat wa ya qadiyal hajat. Ya Allah, sesungguhnya kami memohon kepadamu agar engkau permudahkan segala urusan kami dari awal hingga akhirnya, daripada perancangan hinggalah terlaksana. Jadikanlah ia sebagai pemangkin, menguatkan tekad kami untuk memberi khidmat terbaik kepada ummah dengan penuh prihatin, adil dan saksama. Engkau ilhamkanlah kami idea-idea bernas dan tuntas agar segala usaha dan inisiatif dapat kami lunas dengan sepenuh hati yang ikhlas. Allahumma ya Hafizu ya Alim. Ya Allah, peliharalah diri kami, pemimpin-pemimpin kami, negara yang kami cintai daripada sebarang musibah dan malapetaka, penularan wabak dan penyakit, terutama pandemik wabak COVID-19. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana haza jam'an marhuma wa tafarruqana min ba'dihi tafarruqan ma'suma. ولا تجعل فينا ولا معنا شقيا ولا مطرودا ولا محروما برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amin ya rabbal alamin. Terima kasih Imam Besar Masjid Negara Tuan Haji Ihsan Muhammad Husni atas bacaan doa itu tadi. Hadirin sekalian, bagi mengetahui dengan lebih lanjut mengenai 4IR, sama-sama kita saksikan paparan khas ini. Itu tadi montaj pembukaan majlis pada hari ini. Semestinya ia telah mencetus keterujaan anda semua dan semoga ia akan terus membawa anda kekal sehingga ke penghujung acara ini. Hadirin sekalian, Dasar 4IR Negara dibangun oleh EPU dengan kerjasama MOSTI bersama lain-lain kementerian, agensi dan sektor swasta. Mendokongi teknologi 4IR, sama-sama kita saksikan ucapan oleh kedua-dua yang berhormat menteri secara hologram. Dengan itu, majlis dengan segala hormatnya mempersilakan Yang Berhormat Dato Sri Mustapa Mohamed, Menteri di Jabatan Perdana Menteri Ekonomi, dan Yang Berhormat Khairy Jamaluddin Abu Bakar, Menteri Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi MOSTI untuk menyampaikan ucapan pelancaran. Dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Dato hormat, tuan-tuan dan puan, rakyat Malaysia yang saya kasih. Syukur kepada Allah SWT kerana pada pagi ini kita dapat berhimpun secara maya dalam Majlis Pelancaran Dasar Revolusi Perindustrian Keempat ataupun 4IR Negara yang akan disempurnakan bersama dengan rakan saya Menteri Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi Yang Amat Saudara Khairy Jamaluddin. Pada 19 Februari yang lalu, Yang Berhormat Perdana Menteri telah melancarkan My Digital dan rangka tindakan ataupun blueprint ekonomi digital Malaysia. Rangka tindakan ini telah menetapkan visi untuk negara menjadi peneraju serantau dalam ekonomi digital dan merangka strategi untuk meningkatkan keupayaan bagi menguasai ekonomi digital. Pada hari ini, Dasar 4IR Negara akan diperkenalkan dengan matlamat meningkatkan kesediaan negara dalam memanfaatkan potensi 4IR. Ia juga bertujuan mentransformasi Malaysia menjadi negara berpendanaan tinggi yang berpacukan teknologi dan pendigitalan.
Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya penting sekalian, 4IR yang pesat membangun di seluruh dunia kini telah menyaksikan berlakunya peralihan paradigma secara radikal melibatkan kemajuan dalam pelbagai sektor dan industri. Semua pihak perlu bertindak pantas seiring dengan pembangunan pesat produk berteknologi tinggi dan sistem otomasi lebih pintar. Ini kerana kemajuan teknologi adalah pemacu transformasi yang merangkumi spektrum sektor ekonomi yang luas dan meliputi semua lapisan masyarakat. Revolusi industri pertama digerakkan melalui penggunaan mesin berkuasa wap. Revolusi industri kedua pula didorong oleh kemajuan elektrik, manakala peningkatan penggunaan teknologi maklumat dan teknologi digital dilihat dalam revolusi industri ketiga. Berbanding revolusi sebelumnya, revolusi industri keempat tidak hanya mengenai mesin, teknologi dan sesebuah sistem, tetapi meliputi gabungan fizikal, digital dan biologi yang membuka peluang kepada kerajaan, perniagaan dan rakyat keseluruhannya untuk memanfaatkan kemajuan teknologi bagi memastikan negara kekal berdaya saing dan mampu menghadapi cabaran perubahan di masa hadapan yang volatile, uncertain, kompleks dan ambiguous.
Tuan-tuan dan puan sekalian, pada tahun 2013, Malaysia telah memperkenalkan Dasar Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi Negara ataupun DSTIN. Dasar ini bertujuan mempercepatkan usaha mengarus Perdana Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi serta mewujudkan sebuah negara maju dan berdaya saing. Dasar ini telah ditambah baik melalui DSTIN 2021 hingga 2030 yang dilancarkan pada Disember tahun lalu bagi mencapai matlamat menjadikan Malaysia sebuah negara berteknologi tinggi. Rangka kerja 10-10 Sains, Teknologi, Inovasi dan Ekonomi Malaysia ataupun MySTIE yang dilancarkan bersama di STIN 2021-2030 akan memperkukuh ekosistem STI bagi memacu perubahan industri daripada pengguna kepada pencipta teknologi. Pelaksanaan dasar ini juga memastikan kemajuan sains dan teknologi bergerak seiring untuk menyokong pertumbuhan ekonomi negara. Peranan teknologi dalam meningkatkan kualiti hidup dan pertumbuhan ekonomi negara sememangnya tidak dapat dinafikan. Pandemik COVID-19 telah mengubah cara hidup kita semua. Seterusnya memerlukan kerajaan, perniagaan dan rakyat untuk mengadaptasi teknologi dan pendigitalan dalam mempermudah urusan dalam norma baru ini. Keperluan menjadi negara berteknologi ini telah mendorong kerajaan mengubah dasar 4 IR negara. Dasar ini akan meningkatkan lagi keupayaan dan kemampuan negara bagi menguasai 4 IR, seterusnya memacu pertumbuhan ekonomi yang mampan dan berdaya saing. Penyediaan dasar 4 IR negara telah melalui proses libat urus yang meluas bagi mendapatkan pandangan dan input daripada pelbagai pihak berkepentingan. Penglibatan semua pihak dalam penyediaan dasar ini akan memastikan pelaksanaan yang lebih cepat, cekap dan berkesan.
Hadirin yang dihormati, kerajaan telah mengenal pasti 5 teknologi trust untuk membina keupayaan tempatan, iaitu kecerdasan buatan, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain dan teknologi ledger teragih, bahan termaju dan disokong oleh pengkomputeran awam ataupun cloud computing dan analisis data raya ataupun big data analytics. Seperti mana yang telah dapat kita lihat pada hari ini, kesemua 5 teknologi trust ini sememangnya telah memberi kesan kepada kehidupan seharian dan cara kita melakukan sesuatu perkara. Baik melalui big data analytics, AI, cloud computing, blockchain maupun IoT, kesemuanya telah membantu manusia daripada segi perancangan, pelaksanaan maupun keputusan. Walaupun Malaysia bukanlah negara yang paling terkehadapan dalam pengadaptasian teknologi, namun Malaysia juga bukanlah negara yang terbelakang. Sebagai contoh, sejak tahun 1999 lagi, Malaysia menerajui penyelidikan genetik biomolekul virus Nipah 9 yang menjadi rujukan seluruh dunia, iaitu penyakit zoonosis yang berjangkit dari haiwan ke manusia. Penggunaan bioteknologi dengan teknologi ICT dalam industri pemprosesan makanan dan pertanian tepat ataupun precision farming juga berkembang dengan galakkan penggunaan teknologi moden dalam aktiviti pengeluaran dan pemprosesan berasaskan pertanian. Manakala bagi sektor pembuatan pula, sebagai antara pemain utama dunia dalam pembuatan chip semikonduktor dalam industri elektrikal dan elektronik, Malaysia juga kehadapan dalam menghasilkan chip menggunakan teknologi gallium nitride on silicon dan juga gallium nitride on gallium nitride. Penggunaan teknologi nuklear pula untuk tujuan pensterilan sinar gamma yang dilaksanakan oleh Agensi Nuklear Malaysia pula telah membantu melonjakkan industri pembuatan peranti perubatan khususnya semasa pandemik COVID-19. Malaysia kini berada di tangga ketiga dunia sebagai hub tenaga solar dan teknologi hijau dan mempunyai potensi besar dalam menjana tenaga solar menerusi sistem panel fotovoltaik di atas bumbung bangunan. Selain itu, Malaysia juga kini menggunakan teknologi blockchain iaitu Vaccine Management System atau VMS bagi membantu proses jejak dan kesan vaksin COVID-19 daripada pengeluar sehingga penerima vaksin di bawah pelaksanaan program imunisasi COVID-19 kebangsaan. VMS juga akan menerbitkan sijil vaksinasi digital yang mematuhi garis panduan World Health Organization ataupun WHO bagi memudahkan pergerakan rentas negeri serta perjalanan keluar dan masuk sempadan negara. Namun segala kemajuan yang kita lihat ketika ini bukanlah penamat. Kepesatan teknologi tidak akan berakhir pada hari ini. Malah apa yang ada pada hari ini mungkin dilihat tidak lagi relevan dalam tempoh masa 5 hingga 10 tahun akan datang. Dengan kata lain juga, kehidupan manusia akan sentiasa berubah seiring dengan peredaran masa. Dalam usaha memastikan pembangunan teknologi berfungsi sebagai pemboleh daya transformasi 4IR meliputi segenap aspek kehidupan dan industri, MOSTI juga sedang membangunkan beberapa dasar dan pelan hala tuju ataupun roadmap teknologi iaitu roadmap pembangunan teknologi elektrikal dan elektronik, vaksin, blockchain, ekonomi hidrogen, teknologi nano, kecerdasan buatan, robotik, bahan termaju serta R&D pengkomersialan, inovasi dan ekonomi. Melalui inisiatif ini, strategi yang dirangka akan melibatkan semua pihak berkepentingan dalam menghadapi cabaran masa hadapan sejajar dengan teras 4IR yang merentasi domain digital, fizikal dan biologi ke arah mencapai negara maju berteknologi tinggi.
Hadirin yang dihormati, Dasar 4IR Negara telah digubal menggunakan pendekatan berpaksikan kemanusiaan supaya rakyat memanfaatkan teknologi di samping mengekalkan nilai kemanusiaan, sosial dan warisan budaya. Ini adalah selaras dengan matlamat wawasan kemakmuran bersama WKB 2030 bagi mencapai kesejahteraan rakyat dan pertumbuhan ekonomi yang inklusif, seimbang dan mampan. Ia juga bagi meningkatkan faedah sosioekonomi dan memastikan risiko yang wujud daripada kemajuan 4IR dapat kita kurangkan. Dasar 4IR Negara mengandungi 4 teras utama untuk masyarakat, perniagaan dan kerajaan. Teras tersebut adalah seperti berikut. Pertama, melengkapkan rakyat dengan pengetahuan dan set kemahiran berkaitan 4IR. Kedua, membentuk negara yang mempunyai kesaling hubungan melalui pembangunan infrastruktur digital. Ketiga, menyediakan peraturan yang sesuai dengan keperluan masa hadapan supaya disesuaikan dengan perubahan teknologi. Dan keempat, mempercepat inovasi dan penerima-gunaan teknologi 4IR. Keempat-empat teras ini akan menjadi panduan kepada kementerian dan agensi dalam rangka program berkaitan 4IR. Teras ini akan dilaksana berpandukan 16 strategi, 32 inisiatif nasional dan 60 inisiatif sektoral yang telah dikenal pasti bagi mengurangkan potensi risiko berkaitan sosial yang wujud daripada 4IR, elemen kepercayaan, inklusiviti, keselamatan cyber, etika dan nilai akan diterapkan dalam semua inisiatif. Hadirin yang saya kasih sekalian, Dasar 4IR Negara ini bukan sahaja melibatkan penambahbaikan kepada inisiatif sedia ada, malah turut memuatkan beberapa inisiatif baharu merangkumi 4 bidang tumpuan iaitu modal insan, infrastruktur, peraturan dan inovasi. Walaupun pada akhir dilihat akan memberi cabaran kepada tenaga kerja yang disebabkan oleh otomasi, penggunaan robot dan kecerdasan buatan, peluang-peluang pekerjaan baharu akan diwujudkan yang menyumbang kepada peningkatan pendapatan dan kualiti hidup kita semua. Bakat muda yang dilengkapi dengan pengetahuan dan keupayaan adalah penting untuk meningkatkan daya saing perniagaan dalam lanskap ekonomi global yang sangat kompetitif dan dinamik. Usaha untuk meningkatkan bilangan bakat mahir negara yang boleh memenuhi permintaan industri, tempatan dan global disokong oleh beberapa pihak. Antaranya, Persekutuan Pusat Pembangunan Kemahiran Malaysia (FMSDC) dan Eurodan Group yang telah menandatangani memorandum persefahaman pada April 2021 lalu di Cyberjaya. Kerjasama ini melibatkan latihan kepada 2,000 orang belia untuk terlibat dalam industri drone dan data termaju.
Para hadirin yang dihormati, inisiatif membangunkan dasar 4 IR negara ini dilihat sebagai komitmen kerajaan untuk mempersiapkan masyarakat dan perniagaan menghadapi cabaran dan memanfaatkan peluang yang terbit daripada revolusi perindustrian ini. Bagi meningkatkan kadar penggunaan teknologi 4 IR yang bersifat disruptif, pendekatan future by design seperti venture builder perlu digunakan dengan pembangunan ekosistem yang kondusif dan inklusif merangkumi rantaian bekalan dan nilai untuk membolehkan pihak industri mencipta produk-produk bernilai tinggi yang bersesuaian dengan kehendak pasaran tempatan dan global. Melalui pendekatan quadruple helix pula, pelbagai peluang baru yang memacu ke arah keseimbangan sosioekonomi yang mampan. Kementerian Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi sentiasa menyokong usaha untuk menjadikan Malaysia sebagai negara berpendapatan tinggi melalui pembangunan teknologi. Dasar 4 IR negara saling melengkapi Dasar Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi Negara DISTIN 2021-2030 yang membawa agenda pemerkasaan sains, teknologi dan inovasi yang disepadukan dengan pengukuhan ekonomi di bawah konsep sains, teknologi, inovasi dan ekonomi ataupun STIE. Bagi menyokong pelaksanaan DISTIN untuk mendepani cabaran revolusi industri 4, rangka kerja 10-10 Mai STIE yang menyenaraikan 30 bidang keutamaan sains, teknologi dan ekonomi yang mewakili 10 pemacu sosioekonomi telah diperkenalkan. 10 by 10 My STIE diformulasi bagi mengenal pasti jurang di antara hasil R&D dengan keperluan industri serta membantu dalam mengenal pasti isu di dalam pengkomersialan produk, teknologi dan juga perkhidmatan.
Hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, usaha-usaha pembangunan teknologi yang dijalankan juga telah berjaya meningkat kedudukan Malaysia kepada kedudukan ke-33 daripada 131 buah negara dalam Global Innovation Index pada tahun 2020. Malah dalam kalangan negara ASEAN, Malaysia berada pada kedudukan kedua di belakang Singapura. Dalam aspek kesediaan Malaysia menerima guna teknologi, terutamanya teknologi digital, Malaysia berada pada kedudukan ke-28 daripada 63 negara dalam IMD World Digital Competitiveness Ranking 2020. Melalui pelaksanaan dasar 4 IR negara, Indeks Kesejahteraan Rakyat Malaysia disasarkan meningkat kepada 137.6 pada tahun 2030 berbanding 124.4 pada tahun 2018. Malaysia juga disasarkan untuk berada pada kedudukan 20 teratas dalam Global Innovation Index pada tahun 2030 serta mencapai peningkatan 30% produktiviti merentas semua sektor berbanding pada tahun 2020.
Saudara dan saudari sekalian, antara teknologi yang dihasilkan melalui inisiatif ini adalah teknologi Farm Assist Robot for Multi-Operation yang membantu petani dalam penyemburan racun perosak serta pelaksanaan projek rintis di ladang Felda menggunakan teknologi drone dan robotik. Kerjasama strategik dengan Kementerian Perumahan dan Kerajaan Tempatan KPKT pula membolehkan projek perintis aplikasi robot dan kecerdasan buatan ataupun AI dilaksanakan di Pasar Ayam Aman Jaya Ipoh yang berupaya membersihkan lantai, mengangkut barang, dilengkapi sistem pengurusan sisa secara pintar serta pengisian ataupun perisian kecerdasan yang boleh mengesan pencerobohan dan keselamatan pasar. Sekali lagi saya tekankan, kesan daripada 4 IR ini telah mula dirasai dan tidak dapat dielakkan. Justru bagi memastikan Malaysia kekal berdaya saing dan dapat memanfaatkan perkembangan teknologi 4 IR dan teknologi baru muncul, semua pihak, baik komuniti perniagaan, sektor kerajaan dan rakyat perlu memainkan peranan serta sentiasa peka dan bersedia untuk berubah ke arah yang lebih sistematik dan berkualiti yang dengan terancang.
Hadirin yang dihormati, Dasar 4 IR negara adalah agenda negara yang akan memayungi pelbagai usaha kerajaan dalam mentransformasi Malaysia untuk menjadi negara berpendapatan tinggi berasaskan teknologi. Visi, misi dan objektif dasar 4 IR negara tidak mungkin dapat dicapai tanpa rakyat, sektor swasta dan kerajaan bersama-sama memainkan peranan masing-masing dengan aktif. Kerjasama yang kukuh antara semua pihak berkepentingan ini merupakan komponen penting bagi merealisasikan hasrat negara untuk memastikan Malaysia terus berada di hadapan dalam menguasai teknologi dan demi kesejahteraan negara dalam aspek ekonomi dan sosial seiring dengan negara-negara maju. Akhir kata, kami berharap menjelang tahun 2030, selepas laksananya Dasar 4IR Negara dan My Digital, matlamat Malaysia menjadi negara yang berpendapatan tinggi dengan pertumbuhan yang inklusif, seimbang, bertanggungjawab dan mampan akan menjadi satu realiti. Dengan lafaz Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, kami dengan segala sukacitanya melancarkan Dasar 4IR Negara. Sekian, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Mustapa Mohamed dan Yang Berhormat Khairy Jamaluddin Abu Bakar atas ucapan itu tadi. Hadirin sekalian, majlis seterusnya ingin mempersilakan Yang Berhormat Menteri merasmikan pelancaran dengan menandatangani dokumen Dasar 4IR Negara. Dipersilakan.
Revolusi Perindustrian Keempat akan mengubah cara dan memberi kesan ke atas semua aspek kehidupan rakyat Malaysia. Cara kita bekerja dan berkomunikasi, ia merupakan teknologi baharu yang menggabungkan dunia fizikal, digital dan biologi. Dasar 4IR Negara berpaksikan kemanusiaan bagi memanfaatkan peluang pertumbuhan dan menangani risiko yang wujud akibat daripada 4IR. Pendekatan keseluruhan negara dasar ini akan meningkatkan kualiti hidup dengan memanfaatkan kemajuan teknologi, meningkatkan keupayaan tempatan untuk menguasai 4IR dalam semua sektor, menggunakan teknologi untuk mempertingkat pemeliharaan integriti ekologi. Tiada sesiapa yang akan tertinggal. Memanfaatkan peluang pertumbuhan yang diwujudkan oleh 4IR serta ekosistem yang kondusif untuk mendepani cabaran 4IR demi membina kepercayaan dalam masyarakat digital yang inklusif, mempersiapkan rakyat dengan pengetahuan dan set kemahiran 4IR, membina negara yang mempunyai ketersambungan melalui pembangunan infrastruktur digital, menyediakan peraturan yang sesuai untuk keperluan masa hadapan, mempercepat inovasi dan penerimagunaan teknologi 4IR. 10 sektor utama akan diberi tumpuan iaitu 1. Pembuatan 2. Pengangkutan dan logistik 3. Penjagaan kesihatan 4. Pendidikan 5. Pertanian 6. Utility 7. Kewangan dan insurans 8. Perkhidmatan profesional, saintifik dan teknikal 9. perdagangan, borong dan runcit. 10. Pelancongan. Dan 6 sektor sokongan akan memberi manfaat kepada rakyat dan mencipta peluang pertumbuhan sosioekonomi yang baharu kepada negara. Tumpuan akan diberikan bagi membina keupayaan teknologi dalam 5 teknologi asas 4IR iaitu kecerdasan buatan, internet benda, blockchain, pengkomputeran awan dan analitis data raya, dan bahan dan teknologi termaju yang berupaya menyokong peluasan dan pengoptimaman teknologi 4IR yang lain. Revolusi Perindustrian Keempat telah menjelang dan ia merupakan gelombang perubahan yang pasti akan berlaku. Segalanya bermula di sini. Dasar 4IR Negara.
Setinggi-tinggi tahniah diucapkan atas pelancaran Dasar 4IR Negara. Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Yang Berhormat Menteri. Hadirin sekalian, kita telah saksikan detik yang menjadi kemegahan negara kita Malaysia yang terus mengorak langkah ke arah pemodenan sejagat. Semoga Dasar 4IR Negara ini dapat menyediakan peluang yang baru dan cerah untuk meningkatkan kesejahteraan rakyat dan seterusnya mencapai status negara berteknologi tinggi. Maka dengan ini, tamatlah sudah Majlis Pelancaran Dasar 4IR Negara. Majlis ingin merakamkan ucapan terima kasih kepada Yang Berhormat Dato Sri Mustapa Mohamed, Yang Berhormat Khairy Jamaluddin Abu Bakar, Yang Berhormat Dato Arthur Joseph Kurup, Timbalan Menteri di Jabatan Perdana Menteri Ekonomi, Yang Berhormat Dato Haji Ahmad Amzad Hashim, Timbalan Menteri MOSTI, Dev kehormat, rakan-rakan media serta para hadirin sekalian yang telah sudi bersama kami bagi menjayakan majlis ini. Para hadirin sekalian, ini juga membuktikan kecanggihan teknologi yang sememangnya memudahkan segala gerak kerja, industri, perhubungan dan komunikasi, lebih-lebih lagi di waktu dunia menghadapi pandemik COVID-19 ini. Syabas rakyat Malaysia. Hadirin sekalian, untuk makluman, majlis akan diteruskan dengan sesi panel yang bertajuk 4IR, Equitable Wealth Creation Game Changer yang akan bermula dalam 15 minit lagi. Sesi panel ini akan dikendalikan oleh Yang Berusaha Dr. Rizal Khairy Ahmad. Dan sedikit latar belakang mengenai beliau. Dr. Rizal Khairy Ahmad telah dilantik sebagai Ketua Pengarah Eksekutif Nano Malaysia Berhad sejak Januari 2013. Dan berbekalkan kepakaran dalam bidang nanoteknologi, Dr. Rizal telah bergiat aktif dalam membina keupayaan dan kapasiti nanoteknologi Malaysia, termasuklah memainkan peranan penting dalam penghasilan Pelan Tindakan Grafin Kebangsaan 2020. Usaha terkini beliau berkitar projek-projek Internet Nano Benda, Internet of Nano Things dan aplikasi blockchain ke arah pengurusan berteknologi tinggi di bawah Revolusi Perindustrian Keempat 4IR. Sesi panel akan diteruskan dan saya serahkan majlis kepada moderator sesi panel Dr. Rizal Khairi Ahmad. Dipersilakan.
Hi, Assalamualaikum and good day to viewers. Together we are gathered here today to look at the recently launched 4IR policy. I'm sure all of you have observed and witnessed the brilliant launch that was exacted today. I think it was exhilarating, it was game-changing. I think it captures the true essence of what 4IR, the policy, is trying to convey to the public and what it presents to Malaysia in terms of the economic value, opportunities, and the way forward. So I would like to express my congratulations to the Government of Malaysia, particularly to the Economic Planning Unit and MOSTI, the Ministry of Science and Innovation, a revolutionary synergy indeed for them to work together to make this launch a memorable event. So kudos to the organization. A bit of recap before we dive deep into the subject matter. I'd just like to bring everyone, the viewers on board. The concept of revolution. People always think, why are we calling it the fourth industrial revolution? The word revolution meaning going one full circle. If you imagine yourself living on this planet Earth, we revolve around the sun, so hence one revolution. It means comprehensive, thorough, holistic. So in the context of industrial revolution, we're talking about total change, transformational effect, which will impact the industry, which will in turn impact the economy, businesses, lives, lifestyles, and the environment. So going back a bit backwards, how we all started. The first industrial revolution all kickstarted due to the discovery of the steam engine, which allowed mechanization to occur, followed by the discovery of electricity by Edison, of which we see mass deployment of electrification. We start to see automation. We start to see manufacturing powered by electricity. Then in the 1960s, we see with the relentless pursuit of the silicon technology, we start to see the power of computation, which herald a new age of mass manufacturing in terms of automation. Then comes what it is now. What matters is the present moment. We see billions of devices are being connected. So we're talking about the age of connectivity, the age of cognitive, of which the cyber-physical era now is upon us. This is where it is being powered by technology, initiated by innovation, for us to look at some of the key economic opportunities presented by the fourth industrial revolution with a much of advanced materials, nanotechnology, biotechnology, supporting the much of the digital tech, green tech, so on and so forth. As you can see here, all the industrial revolution has been kickstarted and supported by technology. If you look at before the industrial revolution, we look at the Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age. Everything is triggered by the discovery of a certain technology that allows the civilization to change. You look at China, how when they discovered and invented gunpowder, they became different upon that. So when you look at the 4IR, the fourth industrial revolution policy, I think it is being timely launched. It consolidates existing efforts and creating a platform to allow for new initiative for us to push the country forward, complementing the previously launched policies such as My Digital Industry Forward. So what better time than now? And COVID-19, the backdrop of the pandemic, presents us the extra nudge towards going into this new economy, how we redefine it. So this is an opportunity for us to look at greater inclusivity, better equity in terms of proportional distribution of wealth. So we need to take charge of this revolution. We need to be the revolution. We need to be the change. So hence the title of discussion today, with the esteemed presence of discussion panel, we're looking at the 4IR policy, which is a policy of equitable wealth creation game changer. So today we have here on board distinguished panel, namely Dato Velu from Economic Planning Unit, Dr. Lacy from Osram, Dr. Siti Hamisa, the MOSTI Secretary General, Professor Mahendran, Pro VC of Sunway U, and Encik Julfitri, the President of the Malayan Youth Council. So we take a total view about what 4IR policy is. We're looking at both from the economic, from the policy, from the economic impact, socio-economics, and how does it impact the people. At the end of the day, the policy must have an end game. The end game is, what does it mean to people like you and me wearing the citizen hat? So a bit of housekeeping before we start. So I will provide introduction, and it was followed by individual presentation by the distinguished panelists. Each panelist are given 10 minutes worth of presentation time, and will be signaled in terms of when the 8th minute arrive, you'll be signaled adequately for you to wrap up your presentation. And after 5 rounds of individual presentation, we were going to have a 20-minute long worth of Q&A. So without much further ado, we will start with the first speaker. Before Dr. Valu takes the virtual floor, I will give an introduction about who he is, the distinguished person that Dr. Valu is. He was appointed as the Director of Manufacturing Industry Science and Technology Section, Economy Planning Unit, EPU, Prime Minister Department in October 2018. As director, he is responsible to spearhead the planning and formulate policies, strategies, and progress for manufacturing industry, science, technology, innovation, which includes small and medium enterprises to make these sectors to lead the country's economic growth. Prior to this, Dato Valuvan was the Director of Enforcement, Road Transport Department, where he was responsible in the implementation of policies towards ensuring road and transport safety for Malaysians. Dato Valu has also served as a General Manager of Putrajaya International Convention Centre, PICC, under the purview of Prime Minister's Department. His career path in the government is unique in that he has to evolve in order to serve a myriad of challenging portfolios efficiently, from organizational development, organizing international meetings, conferences, and exhibition, to road safety regulation enforcement. So without much further ado, the virtual floor is yours. Over to you, Dr. Valu.
Thank you, Dr. Rizal. You actually given me a difficult task to summarize the whole 4R policy in 10 minutes, but nevertheless, I'll try to do it in 10 minutes, whichever I can. So let us see, my presentation will cover 4 topics now, 4 subtopics. What is the 4th Industrial Revolution? And subsequently we go, what is national 4R policy is all about, and why do we need the policy? And how do we achieve the aspiration of national 4R policy for the equitable wealth creation game and changer? So what is the 4th Industrial Revolution that people are talking about? You have introduced this earlier just now, but very quick things that it's the difference within the 1st Industrial Revolution, 2nd Industrial Revolution, and 3rd Industrial Revolution is that it's very linear. So you know how linear it goes, it's taking time, years to move to 2nd Industrial Revolution, and subsequently for the 3rd Industrial Revolution. But for the 4th Industrial Revolution, this is what we coin as exponential. It's very fast. Every week and then every month, something is difficult things, something's coming in and making sure that the technology is moving very fast. So that's why the 4th Industrial Revolution is exponential, and it's different from the other 3 Industrial Revolution. And then what is this 4R? How do we refer this 4R? We say the 4R must have disruptive in nature. This must disruptive transformation of the industries through the application of emerging technologies that permeates across. This is a very important point of the 4th Industrial Revolution, which is fusion of digital, biological, and physical, combination of technologies in different fields, and it impacts all economic sectors and aspects of life. We know Malaysia has already have industry forward, which is only for manufacturing, but 4th Industrial Revolution is impacting all economic sectors and aspects of life. So which is where we're talking about biological technology, we have neurotechnology, synthetic, bioprinting, genetics, and we talk about physical, we have autonomous vehicle, advanced robotics, advanced materials and 3D printing, and goes to cloud, digitalized, where we got the cloud computing, blockchain, IoT, and AI, big data, and so on. So for the 4th Industrial Revolution, we have, these are the technologies that we are currently looking at, and then it will impact the transport, agriculture, financial services, construction, education, smart cities, public security, defense, environment, and also manufacturing and health services. So this all sectors is a part and parcel of 4th Industrial Revolution. Let me go quickly. Why this 4R matter? Why Malaysia must react to the 4th Industrial Revolution? You see, in the world, global, the FOIA is already impacting everything. So we need to unlock the growth opportunities and better manage economy disruption on traditional businesses rising from FOIA. Example, we look at transportation and logistics. We talk about professional and scientific technical activity. We talk about healthcare. We talk about agriculture. So these all been impacted by FOIA, and the technology advancement still goes on. So this FOIA will create new business opportunities, new value creation, efficiency and productivity gains, transformation of 3D jobs, improve work-life balance, and also new job creation. Let us see if, let's say, we never take the challenges of the change. We have heard about this. I will just talk about one or two for dramatic failures that happened before. When resistance of change happens, we talk about Nokia. Everybody knows Nokia is a very famous brand about the film, and actually Nokia have invented the next slide. Nokia has invented a digital camera in 1987, 1991. But what happened is the management resistant to change because they think that the digital camera will eat the traditional brick and mortar of their production film cameras. So they feel that is not necessary. But they fail to see the changes coming in as a tsunami and sweep everything. So at the end of 2012, they have filed for bankruptcy. So definitely we don't want this to happen to our country, which is we are much more blessed with a lot of resources and talent. So when we look at other countries as well, they also have already embarked on fourth industrial revolution. They have like Korea, we have the Korean New Deal. Singapore, they have in Japan, they have Society 5.0 and for the advancement society. So I'll quickly go for the why Malaysia must be prepared as the world become more connected and competitive of risk being left behind. And just one point that Malaysian has access to internet about 80%, and 9 out of 10 Malaysians go online via smartphone. So Malaysia can harness the full potential of IR for sustainable growth while mitigating the associated risk. Why we need to mitigate? Of course, for IR will come with a lot of risk, but we need to mitigate that. As example, we talk about job displacement, digital divide, societal well-being, ethics and values, and eroding trust in society. So to help address existing, we also need to address existing societal environment. We talk about World Happiness Report, we are number 81 out of 149, and also the Environmental Performance Index, we are 68 out of 180, and we are one of the highest in carbon emission per capita. And the cyber threat incidents are increasing 5 times comparing to 2008 to 2018, and we are heavily reliant on low-skilled foreign workers. But saying that, in Malaysia, for time being, various efforts to improve society well-being and economic sectors already been taken by leveraging technological advancement. We talk about blockchain technology application for vaccination certificates, growing drone tech as emerging industry, and also getting private sector to invest in Malaysia for data center, which was recently launched through My Digital in the February 2021. I'll skip this. So what is the background of the national FOIA policy? A total of 24 rounds through the studies, through governance mechanism, 25 ministries, 51 agencies, 7 state government, 460 companies, 22 industry associations, 33 tech providers, and also we are engaging with the international organization. What I'm trying to say is we have engaged so many people before we're coming out with this policy. So what is national FOIA policy? So this policy will steer strategic socio-economic transformation through ethical use of FOIA technologies. So it's an overarching policy that drives policy coherence and supports the delivery of national interests, provides guidelines to address risks from FOIA technology whilst preserving values and culture, and creates conducive ecosystem to accelerate digitalization through convergence of technologies, disciplines, facilitating the emergence of new business models. So how we deliver this? We will take the whole of nation approach, outcome-oriented cohesive strategies and initiatives, delivery-driven governance structure. And what we intend to achieve? We want business growth in all sectors, social environmental well-being for all, fit for future government. So this is the link because just a few months ago, our Prime Minister have launched My Digital Economy Blueprint. So what is the connection with 4IR and digital economy blueprint? So just now I said that 4IR is combination of physical, biological, and digital. So digital is part of 4IR. So that when we outline, the 4IR outlines the key focus areas which impact the rakyat, business, and government in order to seize growth opportunities and address the potential risks of arising from 4IR. So what we want to achieve by 2030 with this 4IR policy? So of course, we want to be Malaysia Wellbeing Index. We want longer and healthy lifespan, safer and secure living, meaningful use of time, and local capabilities. We want to create more homegrown 4IR technology providers, top 20 in Global Innovation Index, and 30% productivity increase across all sectors. And of course, we don't forget about ecological integrity also by doing 4IR technologies adoption. So how do we achieve this aspiration? This is very important of this 4IR policy because once we started to design this 4IR policy, we talk about it, we said, okay, we need to take about human-centric approach. It's not about technology. We don't determine this technology and we change human behavior. For Malaysia, we want what behavior we want to change, then the technology will create. This is a very important aspect of our fourth industrial revolution policy. So I quickly go to the policy. The policy substitute of 16 strategies. 16 strategies and 32 national initiatives covers businesses, society, and public sector. And also it covers 10 sectoral focus, which have 60 sector initiatives. We talk about manufacturing, transportation, healthcare, education, agriculture, utilities, finance and insurance, professional and technical services, wholesale and retail trade, and tourism. We will be supported by 6 other sectors, construction, arts, and administrative and support services. And this policy also identify 5 foundational technologies, which is artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, cloud computing, big data analytics, and advanced materials and technologies.
Dr. Balu, the time is up.
One more. This is
request you to wrap up. Okay.
So when we talk about any policies and all that, the questions comes how we want to make sure that things, whatever initiative you put, will achieve. So how do we achieve the aspiration of national 4IR policy? We have introduced National Digital Economy and 4IR Council, chaired by Prime Minister, and it covers 6 major clusters: digital talent, digital infrastructure and data, emerging technologies, economy, society, and government. Which consists of private sector and also the government. So the private sector will take a big lead in this 4IR in the fourth industrial revolution. And there is will be more coordinated and collaboration among all major ministries and agencies. So this is how we want to make sure that whatever initiative been drawn out in the policy will be carried out successfully. All right. With that, I'll pass it to you back, Dr. Iza.
Thank you, Dr. Valu, for that exhilarating and enlightening presentation. I think the word that I would like to encapsulate your presentation will be enlightening, because it allows for the citizens of Malaysia, the people of Malaysia, to understand what 4IR policy is all about and the creative disruption force that it is, meaning that it creates new opportunities while disrupting pre-existing movements in the economy. I think that is a positive thing that we need to relay to the people of Malaysia so they understand. So in short, to know 4IR policy is to love 4IR policy, to put in simple terms, because you need to understand that concept. So, and of course, in the last part of your presentation, you mentioned clearly about the need to have the private sector to be part of the game plan, because they'll be the one who will exec the action. They'll be the one who will be going to implement and execute the actual movements of the 4IR aspiration on the ground. So, and that transit nicely into the next or the following presentation by Dr. David Lacy, of which I will give an early introduction to who he is. Dr. David Lacy is the Director of Advanced Development for Osram Opto Semiconductors, Malaysia Sdn Bhd. He has worked for Osram Opto Semiconductors for more than 20 years in Germany, the USA and Malaysia in both the organic and inorganic semiconductor fields, and in roles ranging from engineering, manufacturing, and business. Prior to Osram, Dr. Lacy worked for an organic electronics startup company in Cambridge, UK, researching solution process OLEDs, or organic light emitting diodes, for display applications, witnessing growth of the company from 6 to 120 staff and $100 million initial price offering, IPO. He has also worked in R&D of electrochemical of gas sensors in the UK and chemiluminescent imaging of material degradation in Switzerland. His PhD study was at Sussex University in the UK in the area of polymer synthesis and polymer physics. He has been based in Malaysia for more than 18 years and is currently also a director of collaborative research in engineering, science, and technology quests. So, Dr. David Lacy, over to you. You are very much Malaysian from my point of view. You've been here for a very, very long time. Over to you, sir.
So, Dr. Rizal, thank you, and thank you to the organizers for allowing us to present. Osram Opto Semiconductors has been manufacturing optoelectronics in Malaysia for close to 50 years. And today I want to talk a little bit about our journey in the I4.0 direction to give you some idea of what we've achieved and what's still to do. So the history of our situation was that we had many small operations which had grown slowly over time. There wasn't much standardization between equipments. There wasn't much standardization between the way information was shared. And we'd grown in a haphazard way, keeping up with a growing business, right? And I think just like I think in many businesses, we know if we had time, we could look at it in a different way, but we're growing fast and we don't have time to step back. And our equipment suppliers are all doing their own thing. And so we end up with this zoo of technologies, and it's quite difficult to make any sense of it. And it's quite difficult for our people to work with. So our vision was something like this. We wanted to have a system where all of our facilities and all of our equipment is online and it's talking in a standard way so that the data can be shared, machines are interoperable. If we can do that, we have a situation where we get better time to market with new technologies. We're able to support our customers better. Our production runs smoother, our yields get higher, our efficiency of using our assets and labor improve. That improves our cost position, that makes us more competitive. And our processes get more stable, so our factories get more stable, and that makes them easier to run, makes everybody's life easier on a day-to-day basis. So that's our vision for what we wanted to achieve. To give you an idea of what the starting situation looked like, these pieces of paper you can see in the slides here, those are the lot travelers. The lot traveler is the recipe. That's the traveler follows the lot through the production. And as you can see in the center there, along the way, the operator writes critical information on the form. Now, at the end of that, this lot traveler has got a record of what happened. And if you want to look at one individual lot, it's quite easy. But if you want to look at 1,000 lots, you've got 1,000 pieces of paper to look at. And it's clearly incredibly difficult to look at this information and make sense of it. So you can see the problem there using paper record keeping or even electronic record keeping, when the records are fragmented, it's very difficult to control what's going on in your factory. To give an example, in our situation, to run one process took 11 steps. And I won't go into the detail of these steps, but the operator needs to understand multiple different systems and in a correct sequence, go into each system, add some information before they can start the lot can run on the machine, and then they can finish a lot at the end. Now that's a great opportunity for a mistake. It's also quite stressful for the operator. And clearly this is something which is inefficient and we could do better. So to do better, what do we need to do? We need to use technologies like value stream mapping to understand where we really add value and where our non-value add processes are. So non-value add can be something like the operator having to decide if this happens, then do this, or the operator having to intervene with the machine because the machine has thrown up an error message and requires some intervention. So all those things are non-value add. What we can add is simplicity. So if we can add better monitoring, we can make things more repeatable, we can make things more flexible. That really adds value to the business. So if we proceduralize all the processes which add value, we get simplicity and we also get flexibility. And flexibility is important because it means that we can run a different product tomorrow with the same efficiency as we ran today. And that's what our customers want. Our customers don't want to buy the same thing forever. They want us to be a flexible supplier. And so we need flexibility, and the digitization helps us deliver that. The result of that is that 11-step process is reduced to 3. And that's a huge step forward. The first process, the operator scans their badge, the equipment tells them what lot needs to be loaded, the recipe is automatically loaded, the materials are automatically prepared, everything is set to go. When ready, the operator moves in, machine runs fully automatically, it's monitoring the process as it goes, it's sending data back as it moves, and at the end, the operator finishes a lot and a summary set of data is created for that particular lot. So for the operator, it's very easy. They follow the instructions on the screen. There's minimum need to intervene. There's minimum need to make fuzzy logic decisions. From the operator view, it looks something like this. So you just bring the lot up to the machine, you use the touch screen, you scan your badge, you click go, and the production starts to move. And from the executive's view, you can see where the lots are right now. Here you can see which lot was processed exactly when, so you can see how your factory is working, how things are moving. And you can also keep tabs on your equipment, so you can see which machines are working well, which machines have got problems. You can decide to accelerate maintenance, you can decide to move a machine out of productive use for some repair. It's a real-time view of what's going on in the factory. So where are we? Well, we've gone some way along the road. So moving from left to right, we put in place the basics. We got the equipment talking on the network. We established basic processes. In the middle, we got the equipment to operate automatically accepting the recipe coming down from a central location, and the equipment to then monitor what's going on in the process and deliver data back to the central system. And then what we're starting with now is actually doing some of the engineering in a digital world. So now we can see the yield, we can see the yield breakdown, we can see what happened. And looking forward, we can start to model it. So we can start to look at a factory from a virtual perspective. We can start to use even more electronic traceability of materials, equipment, and lots. So we're on the road to the Industrial 4.0, but there's still a long way to go for us. But I think you can see here, there's many small things and you really see it's a jigsaw puzzle you need to build up. And it's really worth investing the time and effort on some of the basic foundations, because once the data starts to flow, then your manufacturing operation really starts to benefit from it. So we started in 2017, 2018. We're now in 21, and we've still got some years to go. You need a certain commitment to make this work, and you certainly need to have some overview of what it is that you want to achieve. But there are benefits on the way. So it's not like you have to wait until the end before you see the benefits of this I 4.0 journey. As soon as you've got some of the foundations in place and some data starts to flow, you'll start to see benefits, and that makes sure your factory runs smoother, your yields are higher, or whatever else. So it really helps. So looking back, you've got to do it for the right reasons, and you've really got to believe in it, and you've got to get the whole team to believe in it, and make sure you focus on the key parts of the operation where these technologies can add value. There's a lot of hype in this market. There's many experts who want to help you. And as the owner of such a I 4.0 journey, you've got to do what's right for your business and decide what makes sense for your company. And at the same time, you've got to recognize this is more than just an IT project. So getting all of your factory and your facility to talk on a computer network in a common language, there's a lot of engineering involved. Sometimes you need to make the equipment compatible with the IT infrastructure. Sometimes you need to make the equipment provide more information about what it's doing. Sometimes you need to make the facility provide information about what's going on inside. So recognize it's a combination of engineering and information technology. Make sure your equipment suppliers come along with you, because they need to improve and also adapt standards in their world. Standards really help. So if you can develop standards in your industry, it really makes a big difference. And don't try and do everything all at once. It's not possible. It's most important that you sustain the building blocks and the steps that you make. Doing all this together will really help you reach your I 4.0 dream. We're still on the road, but I hope you just see the benefits and the steps we had to make to get where we are. Thank you.
Interesting presentation by Dr. David Lacy. It brought us down to the ground in terms of the actual goings on, in terms of how you execute the 4IR components into a real manufacturing environment, where things need to be taken into a peaceful manner, where you need to understand what needs to be done. But it is very obvious that the impact of 4IR technologies in manufacturing is a positive one. We see the increase of productivity, the simplification of processes from 11-step to 3-step, as explained by Dr. David Lacy. But mostly, I think, first and foremost, it has to be in a whole organizational approach, where there's a top-down, bottom-up communication, so that every single employee is on board to understand what technologies to be used, what is the clear outcomes and outputs that is being targeted by the organization, so everything is moved seamlessly, harmoniously together. So moving on to the next presentation, it gives me great pleasure for me to introduce Dato Senior Technologist Dr. Siti Hanisa Tasbir. She is currently the Secretary General of Ministry of Science, Technology, Innovation, Malaysia, MOSTI, since March 2020. Dato Senior Technologist Doctor is responsible for policies and planning in research, development, commercialization, and innovation in Malaysia, and ensuring the ecosystem is in line with Malaysia's economic goals. Dato Senior Doctor has an extensive experience in higher education as a Director General and Deputy Director General of Higher Education Department since 2009, before being appointed as Secretary General of Ministry of Energy, Science, Technology, and Climate Change, or MASTEC, in 2019. She continues to provide the leadership needed in connecting strategically the government, academia, and industry for the economic advancement and social well-being, pillaring in science, technology, innovation, a passion she always holds dearly. Dato Siti has also served as academia in University of Technology Malaysia and professional engineer earlier in her career. On 16 March 2021, Dato Siti is appointed as the President of Malaysian Board of Technologies, recognizing her contribution and passion towards nurturing and preparing Malaysian technology-based high-skilled talent for the challenging future. So over to you, Dr. KSU. The honor is yours to take on the virtual floor.
Thank you, Dr. Reza. Thank you to EPU, Dato Valu, and the team for inviting me to this event, the launching of 4IR. Congratulations to EPU for organizing this conference as well. Thank you for inviting us to join in the preparation of the 4IR. And today I've been tasked to look into very important area that we need to really dwell into, because all this technology will need people to man it, and we need people to execute it. So my topic today is talent and skills for innovation in the 4IR. Can I have the slide, please? Next, please. All right. If you look at this slide, you can see that we have at least 58% of our semi-skilled workers in Malaysia for Q4 2020 and Q1 2021. But when we look at the skilled workers, we have only about 11%. Skilled workers is about 30%, and low skilled workers about 11%. If we look at this bar chart on the right, you can see the increase from 6.5% to 9.8% in the skill categories, meaning to say we have more skilled workers if we compare from 2019, even though we are facing pandemic. So this is quite a positive indication that we are moving into the 4IR as highlighted by Dato Valu just now. Next, please. If we look at this slide, road to 160K jobs. This is from MITI, where investment came in from 2020 to 2021. And we look at this graphic where high skilled workers is about 22% compared to low skilled workers 34%. So we have all this range of skilled workers and low skilled workers. As a nation that is moving to become a developed nation, high-tech nation, and looking especially at 4IR, I think we need to transform these medium skilled workers to become skilled workers. If we look at this, if you can imagine, this is like a triangle where high skilled workers is the least of all, and then we have medium skill in the middle and low skill at the bottom there. Next, please. As highlighted by Dato Valu and also Dr. David just now, with 4IR, there's automation, there's big data, the IoT. Everything is about people, about making things much more simpler, easier for people to conduct their jobs that has been tasked to them. And for us to do that, we need talents that are trained in these areas. And as we know, it is the merging of all physical, virtual, digital, and all that. And we look at the type of jobs that are needed. If we look at automation, for example, we need deep tech to look into that. And we need people who are dealing with big data, meaning to say that we need coders, we need people from the statistic background, but we also have 4IR that are focusing not only in this very high tech and also deep tech, but also from the entertainment industry. So 4IR is actually not only merging the physical, biological and all that, but the merging of all discipline, science and arts. So for us, I think we need to nurture talents from both sides, and this is where we can really push for our high skill workers. Now we have this plan in the Prosperity Vision 2030, where we should be targeting 35% high skill workers. But in my opinion, we should not target 35%, but we should target even more, at least 45%. If you look at this graph here, the chart, most developed nations, they have at least 47%. United States is the last one, which is 42%. But I think as a nation, we should hit at least 45%. I know some may not agree with me on that, but I think we need to target high, at least even if we get to 40% by 2030, at least we are coming close to become a developed nation. This is important, otherwise we will have this triangle where the top part, the pinnacle is only 22 or 30% of skilled workers, and then the low skilled workers will be even larger. Next, please. International statistic, the availability of skills and competencies in talent pool. Malaysia is not doing too bad. We are number 18. I know we have been talking about we lose our talents to our neighboring countries, to Korea, to Taiwan. I'm looking at it as a positive indication where our talents is actually in high demand. But our challenge now is to retain them. How can we make them stay and contribute to the nation? In other countries, when they embark into 4IR, we know that some of them, engineers especially, for the first 5 years, they were not tasked with income tax. They got income tax waiver for the first 5 years, and after that only they start paying. So there are many ways of retaining them. There are many ways of nurturing them to make sure that we can support 4IR policy that has been highlighted by Dato Valu just now. Next, please. In MOSTI, we have several initiatives. We have more than 10 roadmaps. For example, E&E roadmap. We have the advanced material roadmaps. And recently we had a presentation on AI roadmap. And these are the roadmaps that are going to support the 4IR and also 10 by 10, or we normally call it Dasar Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi Negara 2021 to 2030. Next, please. Under this initiative, we are supposed to strengthen national science, technology, and innovation governance, making science, technology, innovation, and economics as enablers to address national issues and challenges to drive development and application of local tech towards high-tech nation. This is, as mentioned just now, we want to move, we want our talent to not just being technology users, but they are going to be technology developer, technology creator. This is where we need a lot of programs to enhance their skills in this area. Finally, encourage innovation in economic growth, improve well-being and quality of life of society. At the end of the day, it is about giving people quality of life through technology. Next, please. This is under the Dasar Sains, Teknologi dan Inovasi 2021-2030. We have 10 socio-economic drivers and 10 technology drivers. And this is actually creating about 94 new emerging technologies in these areas. We need both the socio-economic drivers and also technology drivers. Next, please. And the areas in this case, including AI, blockchain, E&E, all the deep tech. To support all these DASA and also the 4IR, MOSTI has been tasked to lead one cluster. It was highlighted by Dato Valu just now on emerging technology. This is where we need to identify the new technology. We need to come up with dana or funding for all these startups. As you know, we have several programs. One of them is NTIS Sandbox, where we allow those startups to apply for grants and we support them. As we know, the concept of sandbox is like our kids when they play at the playground, when they fall down on the sand, it is not too hard and they can race back and play around. So the same concept here is not to allow the startup to fall down to the point that they cannot get up and we lose them along the way. To support all these initiatives, there's one agency under MOSTI, that is Malaysian Board of Technologies. It was established in 2015 because we saw the emerging technologies then. 2015, 2017, we started to talk about humanizing all these 4IR. We talk about getting talents in these areas. As we know, during this pandemic, the two industries that we saw that are doing quite well. One is PPE and anything related to healthcare. The second one is the E&E. I'm sure Dr. David Lacy can confirm this. I was told that it is up to 9% in terms of their growth. So MBOT's role here is to make sure that we can nurture our talent to meet all this demand, not only at entry level, but also as they go along at the middle managers range and also leading some of these industries. We realize that we are not short of universities. We have in fact established 4 Malaysian technical universities to support this. This was about 15-20 years ago. They produce talents. Some are, as you know, a lot of companies complaining about some of them are mismatched. But now what we are doing at MBOT is to push some of these programs so that it is more industry-based rather than very academic as before. So there was one program that we launched the other day, whereby the students spend 4 years in the industry, that is in Perdana, and they are working. They learn in the industry, and the lecturers will come and help them with the academic part. So we want more and more.
Yes, you. Sorry, your time is up.
Yeah. All right, sorry. Next, please. Sorry. This is our set talent. This is about researchers, RSE. We are supposed to target 70 researchers per 10,000 2020, but we have not reached that. In fact, we went down. But looking at the chart earlier on, I think it's quite positive. But we need to work on this, Dato Value. We need to work together on getting more RSE in the system. Next, please. This is some of the skills for the future jobs. Yes, next, please. This is the National Deep Tech Workforce Development Model, the ecosystem that we need to provide, whereby it's from school to universities, then when they just graduated to the point when they become professional technologies. So this is to us a very important model that we need to implement and execute it. Thank you, Dr. Reza. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. KSU, for that educational presentation. I think it's very inspirational to see that how important talent is when it comes to moving the economy. Because if I were to use an analogy, you can have the best cars, F1 car, but without the driver, the car will stay stationary. So talent, more often than not, is the common denominator in all roadmaps, policy, blueprints, and action plan. So to have the correct talent composition in Malaysia, knowledgeable, high-skilled workers to ensure that we are able to sustain ourselves is super, super critical. Professor Mahendran Senggaran Nair will be presenting the socio-economic transformation in the 4R era. So a bit of background about who he is. Professor Mahendran is a Fellow Academy of Sciences Malaysia, Fellow of CPE Australia, and a member of the National Science Council of Malaysia, chaired by the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Prior to joining Sunway University, he was the Vice President, Research and Development at Monash University, Malaysia, and Chief Executive Officer of Monash Malaysia R&D Center Berhad. Professor Nair is trained as an econometrician and data scientist. He holds a Bachelor of Science honors degree in mathematics from Brock University, Canada, Master of Arts in Science Statistics, Master of Arts in Economics, and PhD in Economics with a specialization in econometrics from York University, Canada. His research interests are in economic and technology policy modeling and development economics. He has written more than 100 research papers, and some of them have been published in international research journals, such as Energy, Renewable Energy, Journal of Policy Modeling, Empirical Economics, Journal of Post-Keynesian Economics, Applied Economics, Telematics and Informatics, Cities, Studies in Higher Education, and Technological Forecasting and Social Change. Professor Nair is the architect for the development of the Malaysian Science, Technology, Innovation 10x10 MySTIE framework. The 10x10 MySTIE provides a framework to deepen the impact of 10 global science and technology drivers to Malaysia's 10 socio-economic drivers. This framework is widely used by the various government ministries, agencies, and industry associations in the country. And over to you, Professor Mahindran. The virtual floor is yours. We look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Reza. Good evening to fellow panel members. Let me first take this opportunity to thank the organizers, EPU and MOSTI, for inviting me to present at this forum. Let me start my presentation. The plan today is in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to touch on some of the global trends and the socioeconomic performance in the 4I era, and some of the key strengths and gaps in our ecosystem, particularly focus on the digital ecosystem, and way forward how IR can create value and address some of the inequalities. Dr. Reza spoke about the various revolution and over the last 300 years, the global economic landscape has undergone unprecedented changes, and much of the changes is actually powered by science, technology, and innovation. And more recently, we see that it has been powered by digital technology, particularly IR technology. And this has essentially, created what we call a hyper-converged economy. This has both positive and negative socioeconomic spillover impact. We will discuss how a holistic IR ecosystem can accentuate some of the positive spillover impact and mitigate risks associated with some of the negative spillover impact. So clearly we are seeing that rapid changes are taking place in the global economy and how countries, industries, and communities are adapting to these changes. This is a very important chart that shows, in terms of science, technology, innovation, very recent data that shows how countries are performing vis-a-vis, economic competitiveness and development. Clearly, we are seeing one of the key things over time is that close to 60%, 59% of the wealth in the global economy is contributed by science, technology, and innovation, particularly digital technology. And Dato Waluwan mentioned about the exponential growth. And what we are seeing here is that, what economists call increasing returns to scale. Every input in terms of science and technology is increasing growth in very, very significant ways. So we're seeing that countries that invest into building this ecosystem are leading the competitiveness and economic race. This is at the macro level. At the industrial level, we are also seeing very similar growth patterns. This is our 21 industrial sectors. This is a study that we did in 2015, 2016. What we see is that we have pace-setter industries that are very strong in knowledge, content, and innovation that are primarily driven by science, technology, innovation. So we see very strong, IT services, E&E, automobile, chemicals, but they're very strong in science and technology, and particularly driven by the digital technology. The Malaysian economy is about $1.4 trillion ringgit economy, and we see that much of it is being driven by many of these key industrial sectors. But we also do have laggards, which have very low digital footprint. So again, the key question is that how do we move them up the value chain? How do we create better value? How do we get better return on value? And this is where a holistic, a whole nation approach of the IR 4.0 ecosystem is really important. At the community level, we are also seeing that there are some major structural changes that are happening. This study I did in 2011, and we saw that we already saw that the digital divide taking place, and we realized that if we do not close the digital divide, we're going to see socioeconomic, divide. This is in 2011, and now it's 10 years. How have we done? And if you see the data on the right-hand side is from the Department of Statistics 2020, this is the household income. We had made good progress for all communities, particularly with respect to relative poverty, the inequalities. But over the last few years, with intensive, push towards digitization, we're starting to see the relative poverty creep up and inequality starting to creep up. So we're seeing that the haves and the divides between the haves and the have-nots are starting to increase. So clearly, it's something that we need to pay attention to. So how do we close this gap? We really need to take a whole of nation strategy. What do we mean by that? We need to be able to take our technology strategy and integrate it with our socioeconomic drivers. And this is where we see that the MySTIE 1010 is critical in identifying the global technology that will value add every sector of the economy, from energy right up to our environment. But this needs an ecosystem approach. We can't just have a technology solution. We need to be able to understand what our ecosystem is and what are the key enablers. Clearly, I think our infrastructure, not just the physical infrastructure, but also our natural ecosystem is an important infrastructure. If we are able to harness it, we are able to achieve amazing return on investment. Our infrastructure, there's a lot of discussion on talent. How do we manage our talent resources, not just be a supplier for the world, but how do we create the talent to create value for our industries and our communities? Integrity, governance systems. How do we build better governance systems so that we manage our resources more effectively? Incentives, what are the type of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives that will stimulate innovation and creativity and next generation industries? Institutions, we need to have champions that lead the way. And I think one of the key discussions would be the role of government in terms of orchestrating this entire ecosystem and building that smart partnerships. And finally, if we did all this, adherence to global best practices would be much more easy. And perhaps maybe in some areas we'll be leading some of the global best practices and standards. So it's not just about technology, but reviewing and relooking at our ecosystem in a more holistic way through the 8I framework. So just want to touch on the MySTIE 1010. We identified, working with ASM, we identified 10 global technology. There were 100 over technologies, but we mapped it down into 10 clusters, from 5G, 6G, to sensor technology, 4D, 5D printing, right up to bioscience technology. And we see that these are all part of the IR-related technologies that could value add energy, business services, education, water and food, smart technology, smart infrastructure, and so on. But that really needs a strong ecosystem and policies, regulations, talent, global best practices. And if we did it really, well, we see that we are able to not only meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals, but also lead the way, become a leading light for other developing countries. So clearly, I think, the technology ecosystem is critical in meeting poverty issues, environmental issues, and also issues related to sustainable development. I'm going to show you an example of how this is applied. Agriculture is one of the laggard industries, and clearly we see that technology can play a major role. This is traditional rubber tapping, and this across, if you see a lot of agriculture sector, it's very labor intensive and a use of a lot of foreign labor. How do we make it technology savvy and knowledge intensive? This is where we see that the 1010 plays an important role, looking at agriculture plan that touches all the technology with the right ecosystem. If we did that, we would move in this direction. And we were doing our research, we saw that China has AI systems in their rubber plantations. Clearly, I think, they're starting to use this technology and build the ecosystem to create better value within the agriculture sector. So clearly, I think it's an opportunity for Malaysia to transform this agriculture sector into a value-added, knowledge-intensive sector. So we see that the 10 technology, the 10 global technology would spawn new technology. The combination of them will lead to new technology, blockchain, impacting traceability, drone precision farming. So we have identified some of the catch-up technology, but also some of the leapfrogging technology that is at the experimental phase, that what other countries are doing. And we see that if we are able to build that ecosystem, it could really harness and enhance the return on value of the agriculture sector, but also spawn new industries within the technology space, agtech space. That has, a strong agriculture sector would have a major impact on the manufacturing, environment, energy, and water and food. So with the spillover impact is phenomenal. Clearly, it's going to have a major impact on addressing poverty issues, environmental. It means, by doing this, we see that, 14 out of 17 SDGs can be met if we orchestrated and curated this ecosystem. Health, major issue at the present moment. Again, we see that, how the technology strategy or ecosystem can alleviate hospital congestion to telemedicine and providing good healthcare services across the country. Clearly, the 10-10 or the technology strategy with the ecosystem can play an important role. Again, we see a combination of this technology that can have a major spillover impact into the healthcare services, spawning new industries within the sector. If we did that, 6 out of 17 SDGs could be met over the next 5 years. Another big challenge is pollution. I think all of you all are familiar with the river pollution. I used to pass through this river regularly, as I was going to school. Clearly, you see that, the river pollution is a major issue, not just river pollution, but pollution broadly is a big challenge. How does this technology address this? And we see that we're using very old traditional methods. You see a lot of the jobs that are related to this sector, what I call 5D old jobs. These are, dirty, dangerous, difficult, demanding, also demeaning. But how can technology make a difference? And this is where we see that the 10-10 technology with the ecosystem can lead to a more knowledge-intensive sector that will lead to what I call the new 5D job, which is high-value 5D job, digital, data-driven, designers, developers, and discoverers. So we're seeing now the next generation that is, pushing the boundaries of knowledge. How do we take it?
Time is up.
Okay. Just to summarize, how do we take it across the board? We see that, this ecosystem needs to be unlocking the returns of value across all the sectors. And clearly we see that if we can orchestrate that 4IR ecosystem, we're able to transform these communities. To summarize, we see that the catch-up strategy, the 4IR ecosystem is critical in enabling catch-up strategy at the industrial level, at the community level, and also transition Malaysia to become a developed economy by 2030, a 3 trillion ringgit economy. Thank you.
Splendid presentation, Professor Mahendran. It is very interesting to see how you allow us to navigate through the MySTIE, the 10x10 framework. It provides some sort like a compass or a navigation tool or GPS, if I may say, in how for us to understand how to balance the push and pull with regards to what the industry wants, the market needs, and of course the societal challenges that we are facing, and pair it and connect it with what the technological drivers are able to present, opportunities. So having that framework, that matrix allows us to understand, hey, we actually can address multiple touch points, and we are able to hit multiple touch points. And also consistently with Dato Valu's presentation is the concept of the whole of nation approach. So we are getting it to be inclusive, hence tying up to the whole theme of this panel discussion on equitable wealth creation, game changer. So that's the whole idea. So thank you so much for that very, very navigating way of presentation. I truly appreciate that. And we're moving on to the last but not least presenter, namely Mr. Julai Johar, who will be presenting in terms of the people, from the perspective of people's needs and expectation in terms of their 4IR and the future of Malaysia, of which the title of his presentation will be looking at preparing future smart youth for 4IR. So there'll be an introduction about who Mr. Julai is. He is currently the president of the Malaysian Youth Council, MBM. He obtained an LLB from International Islamic University of Malaysia, IIUM, and Master of Arts in the Community and Youth Work from Durham University, United Kingdom, under the Chevening Scholarship. Impressive. Currently, he is pursuing his PhD in Youth Studies at Institute for Social Science Studies, IPSAS, of University Putra, Malaysia, UPM. Being a full-time youth activist, he is actively involved in advocating various international issues related to the Islamic world and consulting several youth development programs and policies. He has been exposed to several international programs, including Australian Muslim Leadership Training Program in 2011 and United States of America International Visitor Leadership Program, VLP, in 2012 and 2019. Julai was also the chairman of Malaysia Lifeline for Syria, a coalition of several NGOs focusing on delivering humanitarian aids for Syrian refugees and internally displaced people. He was also the founding chairman of Malaysian National Federation of Youth Workers, which actively promoting professionalization of youth work in Malaysia. He received the highest recognition from Malaysian government as a National Youth Award receiver, the male category in 2015 during the National Youth Day celebration and Asian Youth Day Award in Brunei Darussalam in September 2015. So over to you, Mr. Julai Johar, and the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera. Thank you, Dr. Riza, for a kind introduction. I'm going to present a presentation entitled Preparing Future Smart Youth for IR. So as an introduction, Industry 4.0 refers to the current trends of process automation and data exchange using advanced manufacturing technologies. This includes the Internet of Things, IoT, industrial IoT, cyber-physical system, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, AI, cognitive computing, 3D printing, predictive maintenance, smart sensor, and others as discussed before by the previous speakers. Next, please. So I believe that National Policy on Industry 4.0 was launched just now to drive a digitization in Industry 4.0, transformation of the manufacturing and other associated sectors in Malaysia. A number of initiatives have already been taken by the Malaysian government itself and industry at the national, state, and regional levels. Next, please. According to the famous founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, in his book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, and I believe that some of the young people know this figure, he further enlightened us on Fourth Industrial Revolution he said that this Fourth Industrial Revolution was marked by the emergence of supercomputers, smart robots, driverless vehicles, genetic editing, and the development of neurotechnology that allow humans to further optimize brain function. And I believe that most of the young people, they are alert and they are technological junkies because the Z generation who was born after 1995, they are technological junkies and tech savvies. So based on the Klaus Schwab concept, human life will be made easier with the help of robots who will become friends, especially for the young people and the adult who will take care of the daily matter and tasks, and our life getting easier from now on. Next, please. Despite being the backbone of Malaysian business environment, SME, small medium enterprise, perform relatively poor in digitalization, and we know that some of the young people are working in this sector, and we notice that SME is contributing a lot towards our economic development, and most of our young people, as I mentioned earlier, are working in this sector. So there exists a digital So a lack of awareness of the needs for and the impact of Industry 4.0 technologies, especially among the SME, thus reducing the chances of exploring opportunities and the disruption of business models. So we have to look into these issues because, as I mentioned earlier, most of our young people working in these industries, and they are the main player of SME. So we have to encourage them to accelerate themselves in their industries, to embrace the Industry 4.0, as we notice that majority of the SME is not well versed in these 4.0 technologies. Next, please. So challenge for you is to be specific. Job market, according to the World Economic Forum, on estimated 95% of kids enrolling in primary education today will end up working in jobs that have not been created yet. And this being discussed extensively before, especially during the policy that we have before, National Transformation 2050. So we discuss a lot of jobs that have not been created yet. Education, the industry will demand higher qualification candidates to be working in this new era of industrial revolution. Education sector act as a provider of the candidates will have to adjust the way of training the student in order to prepare them. To be qualified candidate for the industry in the future, aligned with this, there is a term arise among the researchers and education practitioners, which is Education 4.0, whether in the formal sector, in school, university, and college. And we also emphasize on the Education 4.0 in the informal sector, like youth association and youth movement. So we have to be balanced between, we have to provide this kind of knowledge to both sector, informal education and formal education as well. So next, please. So in the World Economic Forum, as reported, the future of job here are the 10 skills you will need for the fourth industrial revolution, and some of them has been enlightened by our KSU just now, Dr. Siti Hasma. So we have to encourage our young people to master these 10 of future skill in order to prepare for the young people for the future. As we believe that we can always build the future for the youth, but rather we can always prepare the youth for the future. So these are 10 skills that must be equipped for our young people, especially students in college, in university, and in school, so that they are well prepared to be the future-proof young people. So next, please. So with technological advances, jobs with these three qualities are most likely to be automated, repetitive, based on rules, involve limited or well-defined physicality. Next, please. So the future. So when we talk about RI 4.0, so we always talk about the future, and we have to prepare our young people to become a future smart youth by using the most efficacy tool, that is education. So next, please. So these are some of the trends of the future 2025 and beyond that needs to be comprehended, especially by our young people, so that they are well prepared, and I believe that most of the young people are very adaptive to the change. So we have, I think, no problem at all, because as I mentioned earlier, that most of the young people are technological junkies. They are tech savvy and they are prepared, and by virtue of COVID-19, it accelerates. It is game changer to bring all of the young people to embrace the new technology. So next, please. So from the above analysis of the common challenges and issues, 5 key themes emerged that encourage the growth of an end-to-end for IR ecosystem in Malaysia. This include upskilling and reskilling all the existing as well as the future talent and skills. Secondly, a significant evolution in collaborative platform and innovation capabilities to develop and have access to more efficient and cost-effective technologies for addressing specific consumer needs. Thirdly, inclusion of SME to encourage better involvement for enhancing productivity. Next, focused funding strategies and support is required for faster and more efficient Industry 4.0 adoption. Last but not least, powerful digital infrastructure is needed to secure for IR operation, thus increasing reliability and safety. This is the last issue, is become the most pressing issues, because we always urge our government to better equip our young people with sophisticated infrastructure in order them to grab the recent development in technologies. So next. So this is the new normal that our young people need to be embraced. Next, please. including the Education 4.0. Next, please. So this is kind of an important thing that we need to, incorporate in IR 4.0 to be balanced between IR 4.0 and Steward Society 5.0, because we want to prepare our young people to be balanced as according to the national education philosophy, that we must produce a balanced young people between technologies, emotional, knowledge, and so on and so forth. So we need to be balanced in terms of fighting for this agenda to be balanced between Industry 4.0 and also Society 5.0, which is human-centered. Next, please. So what we do in Malaysian Youth Council, Malaysian Youth Council is comprising of 40 main youth organizations. We are multi-ethnic and multi-religious. We cover all the segment of the youth, including the creative youth, Aboriginal youth, indigenous youth, Sabah and Sarawak, OKU, disabled, and so on and so forth. So in Malaysian Youth Council, we did promote in informal setting to further educate our young people to become a future smart youth by promoting and organizing program kemahiran insaniah, soft skill training to further equip our fresh graduate, our young people to get ready to enter into job, and they are well versed about the IR 4.0. Program is job marketability skill training program. 300 youth so far has been trained in the collaboration of HSBC Bank. And the second one, the last but not least, new model of youth development as a supplement to our National Youth Policy 2015. So we have to prepare the new model of the youth development in order to further ensure that our young people get in touch with the latest development, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, and also to tally with the latest development in IR 4.0. So last but not least, students who are studying must be prepared to face the big challenges that occur in the era of the Industrial Revolution 4.0 that is happening nowadays. This new pattern change has the impact of creating new position and work skill and the loss of some old positions because they are no longer relevant in the world of work. Finally, these challenges must be faced according to the new work patterns created in the 4.0 revolution. One important factor is the skill and the competency that must be consistently improved. The Industrial Revolution 4.0 is the integration of the use of the internet reproduction line in the industrial world. For that, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jufitri. I think that was a brilliant insight towards the way forward in terms of the youth perspective. Because we know for a fact, we always borrow the present time from the future generation. So the youth is a worthwhile investment. At the end of the day, the fourth industrial revolution does not stop next year or the following year. It's a protracted revolution that will go on at a certain period of time until the fifth revolution starts. So investing in the youth is a very, very critical aspect of any kind of way forward, particularly the fourth industrial revolution. And what you have put in fact, the insight towards what they need in terms of skill set, it aligns strongly to Dr. KSU's presentation earlier in terms of the correct skill sets. So there's a strong harmony and goes all the way back to Dr. Valu's presentation, the whole government and nation approach, creating new opportunities, Professor Mahindran's context of my SCIE to provide that so-called the youth GPS or SatNav for us to navigate through what are the new opportunities, where we want to go to, and of course, Dr. David Lacy provide that on the ground, what's really happening at the management level to give us some level of realism. So now moving on to the Q&A session, which is, I think, we are shifting up the gear to a much more exciting part of this forum. To Dato Values to respond, the COVID-19 pandemic, because we're trying to color it to be relevant to the current situation here. The COVID-19 pandemic has deeply impacted everyone, as we all know. Many have lost their jobs, and most of the SMEs are not able to sustain themselves, which leads to their closure. Concurrently, 4IR itself, which is deemed to be creatively disruptive, is set to displace jobs. So financially speaking, can the government afford the major transformation as per mentioned in the new 4IR policy And what makes this new policy different from others in reviving back business in industry, especially the SMEs, and create new business and employment opportunities?
Thank you for the questions, Dr. Rizal. Yes, in any technological revolution, it's bound to elevate productivity, uplift value, and add value of the products and services. But job displacement is inevitable, but the impact can be managed and leveraged to transform jobs, especially 3D jobs, or according to Prof. Mahendran, it's about 5D jobs. So recognizing the potential risks, the National Fire Policy also introduced initiative to cushion the impact to allow a smoother transition for business and people for FIR. Historically, when people thought about computerization those days, 20 years back, they thought that accountants will lose a lot of jobs, but actually it's not. They create more jobs for the accountants. So that is what we are trying. So upskilling, like what Dato KSU said, is part of the strategy, and it's a planned investment, includes ESG, qualified leadership, institutes, and technology. The question: can the government afford the major transformation? Of course, yes. The policy takes a whole of nation approach, which will facilitate innovative solutions from the private sector and also civil societies. But what we want to stress is government will play its roles in areas that requires intervention. So it only plays its roles when it requires intervention. But we want, of course, which intervention we're talking about fiscal and non-fiscal incentives, but the transformation is to be owned by every rakyat. Everybody must own this 4R, and we want policy is more on whole of nation approach. So government will still be investing on the organization and individuals who are championing this socio-economic environmental well-being of the nations. What makes this new policy different? There are three things that I can put it here. The first thing is the whole of nation approach. We are not only identifying focus areas to have business to embrace YR, but upgrading the government and safeguarding the society needs, as well as to ensure the country as a whole is geared up for YR. We are emphasizing more collaboration with the private sector and opening to more opportunities for private sector to lead. As I said, in the digital economy and FIRE council, you can see more private sectors in that clusters as well. The second one is human-centric approach. I explained this now in my presentation. This Malaysia have taken a different approach. We want more human-centric approach. We are challenging businesses and society to rethink and reimagine the kind of lifestyle the one who will want to live in this world. The third one is synergies with the digital economy, My Digital. We will leverage the National Digital and Fire Council to optimize resources and allocation and coordination across different ministries, agencies of different levels of government. We know we are still talking about, when we talk about the federal level, maybe it's okay, but to the state and to the local authority, we still have some problems and some hiccups. But this is a thing will be leveraged through the Fire Council. So I think that's the first cut of my my answer to the questions.
Yeah, a bit of follow-up comment to that, Dr. Balu. You mentioned again and again the concept of whole of nation approach. So what brings to mind is a bit of element of in terms of decentralization or democratization of technologies and business opportunities, which every citizens are empowered to create opportunities for themselves. So what is your perspective on that when in the context of the whole of nation approach? Because when you look at decentralization, meaning everyone is able to produce their own thing, create prototypes in their own thing, they're able to create businesses at their own pace and do and on their personal platform. So how do you comment on that?
Yeah, that is one thing that we want to encourage more. Even in the presentation of Dato KSU, we talk about national, the NITS, the sandbox, national, NITS and the sandbox. technology sandbox where we have more and more individuals or companies to come and try to develop the technology. And we have grassroots technologies innovation programs as well in the ministries to go to the grassroots, encourage them to create technologies, to develop more what we call not very much, we talk about very advanced technology, but some technologies that can be replicated to be more what we call to support the community. This is what we are trying to do, and the what we call the program is already there, but we will like to see more of this to come up, because this is what I say, this is a rakyat approach. We want rakyat to come and say, okay, yes, we can do. If we don't have this kind of attitude, then we will be looking at, we will be having more people to adopt the technology and not the creator of the technology. So government as a whole, we always want to approach for this, that the rakyat will come front and then to develop more technologies for the betterment of our country and also for the betterment of the world, because we are good in the certain things that we are already proof our footprint there.
Interesting, because now we're talking about the rakyat having the opportunity to take up some leadership role in terms of pushing the economy forward. Thank you, Dr. Valu, for that. So, passing on the baton, because Dr. Valu mentioned about, again, quite a number of times in terms of the role of the private sector. So I will throw this question to Dr. David Lacy, because he's the man on the ground. He's seen how the 4IR technology has transformed and changed the way industrial processes is. Literally, he experienced it. So how do you envision the role of the private sector from your perspective, particularly in the manufacturing business services sectors, complementing the government's role as described by Dr. Valu in transforming the market, which you are specializing in, which you have leadership in, into a conducive 4IR environment? We're talking about beyond Ostrom, How do you become the catalyst in that sector for comprehensive and inclusive new economic activities?
I think the first thing that industry is doing and can do is to help set standards, right? So as I mentioned in my presentation earlier, one thing that really helps the development of these 4IR technologies is having some standards and some clear demand, some use case, and I think industry can do that as a way to really support all the companies and all the individuals that want to get involved in 4IR innovation and development. Beyond that, of course, ultimately, industry is a customer for those technologies, so we also create commercial demand. So I think we can help set standards, we can help buy technology, and we can also work with the academic network, universities and the like, as well as our suppliers to develop the technologies, and they must be standardized. So it can't be for a single company or even for a single industry. For it to be successful, these must be standards which can be applied across the country, across industries.
Do you see for yourself, Osram or Dr. David Lacy as an individual to initiate the discussion, movements in Malaysia to set the standards in Malaysia and present it to the government, say, this is what we think is best, this is what the national market wants, and you help that put in place to orchestrate the value and supply chain in the country? Because that, I think, is critical.
I think that's already happening. So there's an activity called the Electrical and Electronics Industry Productivity Nexus, EEPN, and that is already doing exactly that. In other words, providing those standards, providing demand, sharing technologies with other companies to help pull up everybody to meet the standards that are needed to be successful. And me speaking as an R&D guy, the opportunities with this technology is that instead of having to do a special experiment to look at a certain variable, actually now I just have to go back and look at the data. So science and technology changes because instead of doing particular experiments where you deliberately change something, you actually approach it in a different way. You just dig back through the old data to find out when that thing changed naturally. And you can learn a lot about improving something by just having access to this detailed data of how your process performs or how any system works, there is natural change, and you can look at that change and you can understand improvements directly. So it's a new way to do R&D in our I 4.0 world.
Yeah, data-driven, right? Everything. Interesting. And Dato Kasyu, yes, nice to have you here. Again, I have to say that again. Your talents and skills for innovation in the 4IR presentation has triggered a train of thoughts in my mind. Because when I look at the presentation, I would like to seek your response in terms of what is your opinion or your comment in terms of balancing the fundamental knowledge with skill development, because we see a lot of statements made by leaders of industry lately, the likes of Elon Musk, even the CEO of Google, saying that we don't need traditional education. It's all going to be skills-based. But is that applicable in Malaysia? Because how do we balance in terms of the need to have creating enough skilled technicians or workers, but not compromising the creation of the next generation of scientists, which is supported by deep knowledge, and how will it impact our way forward education model? That will be question number one. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Reza. When we look at the current model of talent development, we need to move to high skill, and that will require us to look at the skill that we need. And as you rightly mentioned, leveraging or balancing between the two, one is the hands-on, the other one is the fundamental knowledge. That's why we need to look at this. One is skill, which is on hands-on, the other one is on RSE. I mentioned about RSE today because RSE, this is the fundamental knowledge, researchers, scientists, and engineers. And this is where we need to push the ratio. Now, I think we are hovering about 60 plus to 70. But if we look at developed nation, it goes as far as 148 every 10,000. So we should be moving towards that. At the same time, we need to make sure that these professionals of technologies in different areas, they should be recognized in terms of their talents, their experience. Because when people say we don't have the right talent, they are not looking at this entry level. They are looking at those with 5 years experience that we lack of. And this is the one we need to balance both. But for the research, we need to move also research from fundamental research to experimental research. And for this, the ratio that we are pushing for, if we look at developed nation, this is about 70% for Korea, UK, and other countries, but we are still hovering about 30%. We should be pushing that. At least if we get 50%, then we have a balance of the fundamental research and experimental development. So in my opinion, the ratio should be there. We should not pursue all into one basket. Yeah, for example, the hands-on only, but we need also thought leaders. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you, Dr. Kasyu. On my second question, pertaining to your second half of your presentation, we see MOSTI developing a lot of roadmaps, blueprints, action plan, and whatnot. But at the same time, how can we leverage on the 4IR policy framework to finally transition Malaysia from technology user to technology producer nation to exploit technologically driven growing market? Because that has been our long-standing ambition. So how do you see us doing it differently this time?
The roadmaps that we had, one of them is on startup. This is the first time that we are looking into startup. This roadmap is actually for these startups to work in these roadmaps that we have created. And we have a target on the number of startups that we need to create so that they are the ones who are going to be the developers and creators rather than technology users. Previously, we have always been importing technology from overseas, but now we are pushing. In fact, we have presented to Jemaah Menteri as well on the policy towards putting Malaysian products first in the procurement and whatnot. So we have got the policy, but now it is our job to make sure that we follow through and get it done. I think this is the most important part.
Interesting, because I see a synergy between what Dr. David Lacy has mentioned earlier on, for the industry to become a test bed or validation platform, which also ties up to the ambition of MOSTI having the sandbox, which also mentioned by Dr. Balu earlier on, for us to work together in terms of creating this new ecosystem. Because 4IR is all about creating disruptive innovation. The market may be ready or not ready, but we need the convergence of the private and public sector to create that environment so that new ideas are being fleshed out, so we can create, and push new technological ideas to the market. Very interesting. Thank you, Dato.
Dr. Rizal, can I comment?
Sure, please do.
Coming from education, I think I need to comment. I think, in the push towards a high-tech nation, I think we need to have a balance. We need to have both high-tech and high-touch. And I think, while in this 4IR era, while technical competence is very important, we need to ensure that the graduates and the talent that comes out have the right graduate attributes. And what that graduate attributes is having very strong technical capability, but also a strong liberal education where they can actually apply what they learn in the engineering courses, in their biotechnology courses, in the, how to improve human, way of life and in society. So if we take too much of the technical, we miss the touch part, and this is where the challenge is. Coming from from the mathematics background and going to social science, I have better appreciation of the technical knowledge, because you can contextualize to the environment. And I think this is where the balance between ensuring our graduates are ambidextrous, strong in technical competence, but also very strong liberal education, where they can apply the knowledge in their day-to-day activities. And then, thank you.
Yeah, I concur with your response over there to Dr. Kasu's answers, because I think developing the right and left brain, I think, is critical to create a well-rounded individual, for us to truly understand the need statement in terms of the societal domain, for us to push the right technologies rather than just shoving down the throat that this is for you, you must accept it because we are creating this market. At the end of the day, the landing point would be, is it benefiting you in a responsible and sustainable manner, which is critical. So thank you for that response. I think it's because 4IR is not just about technology. Yes, the revolution started because of discovery of new disruptive technology, but it is sustainably driven by human, what they need, and placing them in the right market. So going back to Dr. Valu's earlier response, the human-centric policy, I think, is really, really spot on. Yeah. And now, since going back to you, Professor Mahendran, interestingly, you chime in, having all this framework, the navigation tools such as the My STIE is great and whatnot, but how do we plan to measure the impact of the 4IR? If you do plan to measure, because there will be some questions from the public, say that, okay, you have this roadmap, you have this policy and whatnot, but how do we measure as we trot along in this 4IR domain or era, in terms of the Malaysia's and global economy, from the triple bottom line perspective, people, planet, profit, and tackling global issues such as climate change, pandemic, which is currently happening, with respect to the execution of 4IR, which is just as important as creating new businesses and jobs.
Yeah, I think thanks for this great question. I think let me take the environmental issue. I think environmental and climate change issue is a major issue. And I think there's adequate scientific evidence that's showing that, the environmental issues are leading to zoonotic diseases and potentially new pandemics. So we really cannot run away from the environment. We only have one Earth, and we need to manage that resource really well. But having said that, how do we balance between economic development and environmental sustainability? And here is the game. So it need not be a zero-sum game. It's two sides to the same coin. And we see that, this trade-off between economic development, environmental sustainability, I think technology and the technological ecosystem today enable us to break away from that trade-off to trade benefit. And we are seeing this in many developed countries where they're using the best technologies to be able to create eco-friendly technologies. You know, you see in Europe, they're moving away from hydrocarbon, more renewable energy. So we're seeing eco-friendly industries that are coming, that are creating value-added jobs. So we see that, but that needs a very sound ecosystem that provides, you know, seamless integration of information and knowledge for strategic decision making. So if we had that, and that's what the 4IR ecosystem provides, it gives us access to information and knowledge. And that helps us, you know, ensure better governance, better environmental governance and managing of our resources. If we did this really well, we're able to reap 5 important benefits. Number one is that we can improve our production processes. You know, we can less pollution, you know, better management of our water resources, our ecosystem, our production processes improve. We spawn new industries. We're able to, you know, nurture the next generation talent that are more, you know, attuned to the environment. We're able to change consumer behavior, the way we consume things. So again, we see that this knowledge and information is critical, this ecosystem. This is also drives investments, the type of foreign direct investments that comes into the country. So again, you know, good environment leads to good foreign direct investment. This stimulates trade, international trade. And the next challenge for many developing countries, including Malaysia, is that environment and climate change is going to be an important non-tariff barrier. So again, and the last thing, so the fourth one is trade. And the last one is that if we did this all right, we see that we can reduce the cost of environmental management. And, you know, we spend billions of dollars on managing, you know, pollution and so on. If we manage the environment properly, some of these savings could go back to some of the development initiatives. So again, we see that the spillover benefit is phenomenal, but we need to curate a solid, sound ecosystem that is able to harness this return on value.
Yeah, I think you soundly state a very important statement in a way, data economics, right? So
information
data,
and knowledge.
data economy, where we have this some level of transparency in terms of how data is being sourced, processed, analyzed, and how it's being used to arrive to a decision. I think that's very important for us to have that level of transparency to allow for what needs to be done, how it is being done, where it should be applied to. That's critical. And you rightly said in terms of the responsible development of technology, because at the end of the day, if you look at what seems to be the mainstream activities such as E&E or even the petrochemical industry, they need a very healthy environment to operate. So by investing or mainstreaming investment into climate change to preserve the environment will directly benefit those industries because they need to survive. Some of them require water to process some of their end product. They require clean air. So it makes sense for us to understand that there is a need to establish the so-called green infrastructure, which will be part of the value chain, which will be synonymously, harmoniously connected to what 4IR is all about holistically. Okay, thanks, Professor Mahendran. So over to you. I think I have this burning question to ask Mr. Jufitri, because from the youth perspective, when it comes to the adoption of 4IR technologies, how could the mindset of the public, particularly the youth, can be shifted from job seekers to job creators? So I'm talking from to harmonize with all the inputs and comments made by the previous panel members from the technopreneurship agenda. We're leading to greater appreciation for endogenous or local technologies. How do we push them in the right direction?
Thank you very much. This is a very important issue to be addressed. I think professionals may have noticed that the job landscape today is very different than the one we were looking at just 8 years or 10 years back. And although there is a lot of talk about jobs returning, the job search market is likely to remain daunting for many people. More and more companies and individuals are shifting away from full-time salaried jobs to hiring freelance or contract workers. This is, I think, in line with the nature of the young people nowadays. They want to become, they are not loyalists towards certain or one or two employer. So they want to be freelance, to be a free agent, so they can work at one time, 11 jobs at one time. So government also nowadays tend to recruit more employees based on contract or project. It don't promise that any goods for young people who are struggling to start a new life after graduates. individuals have to adapt to these ongoing trends. So they must have an adaptive mind. So how to change, ladies and gentlemen? So my suggestion is through the involvement in the field of entrepreneurship. So we always emphasize on the importance of our young graduates to enter into the realm of entrepreneurship, so they can become, freelancers, so they are free and have an extra time to do what they like, because they have, extra time for their.
You're talking about gig economy, right? Gig economy. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So entrepreneurship was among those components that can strengthen the ability of the younger group to generate wealth and consequently open job opportunities for others. And also, from my humble suggestion, government must increase the involvement of the young generation by focusing on 4 components, namely education, skill, as I mentioned earlier during the presentation. Of course, leadership. We in dire needs of good leaders nowadays, especially in the era of 4.0, and entrepreneurship towards efforts at strengthening them. My third suggestion is higher learning institution. When we talk about mindset, it is directly related to education. So we have to change the minds of our young people to become an entrepreneur, to become free agents, to involve in gig economy, especially when we talk about technological advance. So higher learning institutions should encourage our fresh graduates, or even before they graduate, to become job creators rather than job seekers. For that, in the Ministry of Youth and Sport, together with the Malaysian Youth Council, we are promoting My Gig project to further, open the opportunities for the young people, especially for the young graduates, to enter into gig economy. So the keyword of gig economy, they must be able to master more than 3 soft skills, so they can survive in the gig economy. Yeah. Last but not least, in addition, we can also promote unpopular areas of employment such as agriculture, fisheries, and livestock employment. In the meantime, we can actually take the opportunities to promote new technologies in the field produced by students in institutions of higher learning such as Polytechnic, Institute Kemahiran Belia Negara, Skills College, and so on. And a little bit of this debate has been touched by Professor Mahendran just now. We must integrate the technological stuff into this 3D's area of job, especially in I think in agriculture, fisheries, because if we talk about to attract our young people into this area, so we must integrate technological stuff into this realm of job. So cooperation between all these parties is actually able to create an atmosphere of mutual needs by education, industry, and this country is able to increase the opportunities in employment in various fields. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Jufitri. I think that encapsulate the real opportunities on the ground in terms of how we can empower the rakyat, especially when it comes to Dr. Valu's statement, rakyat-centric policy, and to ensure that every single rakyat experiencing the democratization of technology, so they can create their own microeconomies. So when you connect them together, you can create this macroeconomy benefiting the whole of Malaysia. All right. Thank you. So in the interest of time, I think we have come to the end of the Q&A session. Right now, we're looking at the conclusion part of the session, starting from Dr. Valu presentation. We have Dr. David Lacy, Dr. KSU, Dr. Siti Hamisah Tafsir, Professor Mahendran, and Mr. Jufitri bin Johar. I think in terms of the overall picture, what the real underlying message that we want to really convey to the rakyat or the citizens of Malaysia is, number one, 4IR policy is holistically inclusive. It provides equitable wealth creation, game changer approach because of the people-centric approach that was designed in such a way. It also provides platform for further decentralization or democratization of technology. So every one of us has that equal opportunity or equitable opportunity for us to participate in this new hyperbolic trajectory that literally can be spun off into many areas in various economy, particularly serving what is good for Malaysia. I think that is critical. And it is also a platform that empowers people, people-centric, so on and so forth. So the last line that I would like to add in terms of this. The 4R policy is what 4R revolution is all about. And everyone present today, the panelists and the rakyat who are viewing the session, you need to be part of the revolution. Or simply said, be the revolution. You need to take control of the revolution. The 4R policy facilitates the empowerment of every individual to be part of it and become that change, become that transformation agent, and become that revolution. So thank you everyone for viewing this. And I would like to also express my gratitude and appreciation to Dr. Valu, Professor Mahindra, Dr. Lacy, Dato Siti Hamisa Tafsir, KSU MOSTI, and of course, last but not least, Zulfitri bin Johar. Thank you so much and enjoy your day. Stay safe, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hadirin sekalian, maka dengan ini sekian saja perjalanan Majlis Pelancaran Dasar 4 IR Negara hari ini. Majlis sekali lagi mengucapkan setinggi-tinggi penghargaan kepada Yang Berhormat Menteri, Yang Berhormat Timbalan Menteri, ahli panel dan semua yang terlibat dalam menjayakan majlis ini. Diharap segala yang baik dapat kita manfaat dan nikmati bersama untuk terus maju pada masa hadapan. Saya selaku pengacara majlis pada hari ini memohon maaf sekiranya berlaku sebarang kesulitan. Segala yang terbaik itu datangnya dari Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala dan segala kekurangan datang dari kelemahan saya sendiri. Teruskan patuh SOP dan jaga diri sehingga kita berjumpa lagi. Saya Asrul Nizam Kadir. Salam hormat dan Assalamualaikum.